Here we go. Here we go.
Hello and welcome to the Nurse Rosa's Insights podcast. We are coming to you live from Vive, and today we get to have a conversation about nurses and the innovation in our own learning about how to take care of ourselves, let's say.
To say the least. Say the least.
But you know what? A lot of what's happening at this conference is about AI.
Yep.
And, you know, there's a lot of exciting things that come along with that. But there is no healthcare without nurses. And so we're going to just get started. And let me introduce first Maggie Ortiz. Would you tell us a little bit about your work as advocate for nurses?
Yeah, so I've been a nurse for 25 years, spent the majority of my career at the bedside. Just 3 years ago left. Critical care, ICU, ER, pre-op, PACU, endo, IR, cath lab, everywhere but L&D. I like to joke. No, thank you.
Right.
And then about 15 years in, I did spend time in a board of nursing, so I was trained formally to investigate nurses. I did not stay with that agency. Nurses are not extended due process, so I did leave that agency, and then I started studying up administrative law. And so now I just primarily help nurses, their legal teams, large systems, depending on what they need around AI. There's no rules or no regulations, so we need to make sure that those are in place. Ultimately, to protect the nurse.
So you're working both as a consultant for individuals and groups, but also creating educational content for nurses, right? Like I love to follow your educational social media content, but do you teach courses and things for continuing education as well?
I do, and I have two courses on my website, charting courses, because it's going to come down to the words that you did or did not write. If there's any kind of litigation, more often than not, if it's related to patient care, obviously if you did something criminally or something outside of that, that will be very different. But majority of the time, it does come down to the care that we provide and then the words that you did or did not write. So I got my CE ability through the California Board of Nursing, because not all states do that. And so I can do CE. I can create courses. I've created courses for systems. A CNO reached out to me and said that there's some staff that within the organization that was just doing some stuff that they need a little education about. So I created some educational material for her, because even as a nurse leader, you are accountable to the Board of Nursing if you're calling yourself a nurse. So if something happens within your organization, you have to make sure you're doing a process improvement plan for your staff as well. So yes, thank you for asking. It's not just for the bedside nurse. Ultimately, we're taking up a little bit higher so that we are protecting the nurse before it ever gets there.
Yeah. And let's introduce Radonda Vaught. Would you like to share with us why you're here as an advocate today?
Yeah. So a lot of nurses know my story, but I was working.
I think they know the story. So sorry.
But you know, it's not only nurses that listen to this. This is to give voice to the nurses to be heard by people who are not nurses.
Yeah.
Right?
So I was a nurse here in Nashville at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. We have a fan outside. Hey, live at Vive. I'd been working there for about 2.5, close to 3 years. I made a medication error, and I inadvertently gave a patient a paralytic agent instead of the Versed, the anti-anxiety medication that she was ordered. She suffered an anoxic brain injury, and she died as a result of that medication error. Over the course of the next few years, there was several investigations, Board of Nursing investigations, hospital investigations. Long story short, I was charged administratively, which means that the Board of Nursing brought charges against my nursing license as a profession. And then the criminal justice system charged me with 2 felony crimes. So that went to trial. I was found guilty of those. I'm on probation, and I lost my nursing privileges. My license were permanently revoked. So all of that to say, I have blazed a trail for how we deal with mistakes in healthcare. And we understand that it's inevitable that humans will make those mistakes. That's not excusing it, but I think that there's a lot of opportunity here for us to look at how we evaluate those mistakes and the lessons that we can be learned from them. And this is a tech conference, and I can tell you technology definitely played a role in allowing me to be able to access this drug in the way that I did. And so when nurses are interfacing with this technology, there's a really big focus from our point on how is this technology going to benefit my workflow, but also when something doesn't function properly, who is that going to fall on? And ultimately, it's going to fall on the nurse every single time. It's going to fall on the nurse. And so we want our seat at the table, right? You know, we don't want to see patients get hurt. We don't want to see more nurses leaving the bedside. We're already having a lot of problems with that. So I feel like I have a unique perspective that I can lend not only to nurses and, you know, people that work in healthcare, but our patients as well. We want to be all on the same team. And the same team is getting people better, getting them out of our hospital safely.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
And I'm just so honored to get to meet you in person because, you know, unfortunately, you know, things happen that lead to laws being put in place, right? Nothing gets passed as a law without a precedent, right?
That's exactly right.
And after your situation happened, the Kentucky Nurses Association stepped up, and I live in the state of Kentucky, and I just want to let y'all know right now that Kentucky is
Kentucky proud.
the safest state in the union to practice as a physician, nurse practitioner, or nurse, because they are protected against criminal prosecution.
They are.
For unintentional medical errors, thanks to the advocacy efforts of the Kentucky Nurses Association.
Can we say that again, please? Because it can be nurses that can do this.
That's
and so
right.
They were
this can be
instrumental
every
in
state.
writing the legislation,
Yeah.
speaking with the lawmakers. Every citizen can do it, but
Absolutely.
these people have learned how to be effective. And so I actually just finished a fellowship with them in their Leadership and Advocacy Academy.
Yeah.
To go to the Hill and shadow a state senator for a day and really.
anyone can do this. So this is the
Yes. So putting this out here.
Exciting.
See if your state nurses association has an advocacy type fellowship. I know California does. And so I really am going to be using my social media channels at Nurse Rosa Speaks to share what I've learned and make that as accessible as I can for other nurses who may not be able to participate.
And if they don't,
Yeah.
guess who needs to call and tell them that they need that? The nurses.
Exactly.
Right.
It has to be all of us.
It has to be all of us.
I'm sitting here, she's sitting here, Rosie's sitting here. We're all trying to do our piece. And I understand that, you know, most nurses show up to their job. We got kids. We're just trying to do the 9 to 5. But you can write your senator. You can, this is a 5-minute situation. I go to my own capital. I know that, you know, some of these organizations sometimes don't always align with some of the things that we're doing, but they have lobbying power that we don't have.
Right. Yeah.
They have lawyers that we don't have. Every nurses association has a legal team, has lawyers, they lobby. Now I go as, you know, just myself, and I have been able to make change in my own state. So I cannot allow anyone to sit here and say, you can't do it, you can, because I have by myself.
And we'll differentiate. A nursing association is not the same as the board of nursing in your state.
No.
Very different.
Can you clarify that for us? Because you've definitely worked for a board of nursing before, right?
So very different. They do things together, right?
Yes.
They went at the Texas Nurses Association. Of course, the Board of Nursing was there. They do work hand in hand because when there's policy, there's rules, there's regulations. You need them, you know, to all work together. But there are very different entities. And then I don't want to speak out of turn, and you may know more about this as well. There are some associations, and California is the first one that comes to mind, that are unionized, right? So that their power is a little bit different. And I'm not pro-union. I'm just saying that there are different associations that do different things, but some of them are even unionized and have a little bit, more power. But no, nurses associations are very different than the boards of nursing and do wield different powers. They're actually the ones that can put pressure on the board of nursing because sunset is, I don't want to get into too many nuances, is like the law that's passed for us that
in Texas?
Well, in general, most laws fall under what they call like sunset when it's healthcare related. And so when they're going to, let's just say like with AI, they're going to adopt something new. They're going to wait for sunset. In my state is every 10 years to come to look at the rules and regulations that dictate healthcare practices.
It's a very slow process.
It's a very
slow
they
Explain
don't meet
this
every year.
sunset concept where you have to wait a decade to look at something.
Tell
Tell me about this.
that I don't know. So this is so please chime in, anyone else. I just know specifically Texas, we only meet every decade to talk about any kind of, like, if there's going to be a position statement that's added, or if there's going to be any rule or regulation, we might be accumulating
That's going to be
these
added to what?
to like the rules and regulations
Of the Board of Nursing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was
So
like,
say,
clarify
so
which one
say,
we're talking about here.
okay, I
Yeah.
apologize. So for the Board of Nursing, I apologize. So discriminating between the Nurses Association and the Board of Nursing, but the rules come from our state, right? So that they meet. So say, like for AI, the Nurses Association decides that we like this policy. We think this language should be presented. So then the Nurses Association, in conjunction with the Board of Nursing, can say, "Hey, we want this presented at sunset, and this should be the language adopted for a policy, position statement, as it pertains to the rules and regulations that dictate our professional license."
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So is sunset like 2020, 2030, like
Every
10 years
state
like that?
gets to decide when they want to meet,
Interesting.
and normally that's dictated by the Public Health Committee.
Interesting.
And a little bit out of my
See,
lane.
there's just so
Yeah.
much you
I'm-
can
I may
learn.
have learned
So
leave
much.
my
They
lane a little
didn't
bit.
even teach me this in my fellowship, so maybe it's not the case in Kentucky. Or
might
maybe
be.
I didn't need to know at that point, right? Because
Yeah.
that was the introductory
Yeah.
step, and there's so much more to it.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's really important that we talk to each other
Yeah.
and learn from one another what questions we even need to be asking.
Yeah.
right?
I think the simplest way to differentiate between a state board of nursing and a state nursing association is every state has both.
No, they
the-
don't. Hold on. Because if you think about
a
it,
version
a version
of
of it.
this.
Okay, because
okay.
nurses will come in, I don't have a board of nursing. I'm like, okay,
You do,
fall
it's
under
called something else.
HHS. It's under,
Yeah.
but any entity that's giving you the privilege to practice, some of them aren't set up like a state board of nursing. I do have a state
Yeah.
board of nursing.
Yeah.
But not every state, which again, don't get me on this whole tangent, because it should all be set up the same, right?
It
Because
should
if we
be.
have compact and you're going from Nebraska to Texas, then it should just be pretty much mirror the same
Yeah.
structure. Like everyone should have a board of nursing, but they
Yeah.
have an entity
that
or
that regulates
Yes.
your license.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
it's the board of nursing or whatever entity that regulates your professional nursing practice that gives you that license, and their job, as appointed by the governor or however that works in your state, their job is by law to focus on protecting the public, right?
like the patients and the
patients,
community.
right.
Say that again,
Their
because
job
most
is to
people don't know that.
protect the public. Their job is to make sure that nurses are licensed. We've passed NCLEX. We have a license. We maintain that license. And should a complaint be filed against our professional license, their job is to investigate and act accordingly. Punish your license, revoke your license, however that needs to happen. But their interest is in public safety. That's
Which
their
is
job.
very important.
Yes.
Right.
No one's negating that
We
at all.
want
We need to-
yes. We're all going
People
to
be
be patients.
held accountable
Exactly.
to practice safely,
Right.
not
Integrity.
harm
And if there are
anyone.
issues that are coming up in our healthcare world, then we want those boards who regulate those individual licenses to investigate and protect the public. That's what it's designed for. Switching gears, your state nurses association, that is an organization that comes together on its own, and you can choose to be a part of it or not. You don't choose whether the board of nursing is in your
Right.
business. If you
Right.
got a license in that state, they're in your business. But the nurses association, that is who advocates for nurses.
Yes.
Right. They are the ones that connect with nurses. We're going to figure out what's going on within your state. We're going to look at the problems that are coming up. We're going to look at what's working and what's not working. And then through those connections, they are able to then utilize their lobbying power to go forward to your, go to the Hill, talk to the people who are writing laws and say, we need these things to change, or this is what we need in place. I mean, a lot of the times those are focused around advanced practice because that's where a lot of the laws are already written and exist. So state by state, if you're a nurse practitioner, in Kentucky, you can prescribe certain things without an MD oversight. In Tennessee, you can't. Right. So like in Kentucky,
very best
you
case,
can
yeah.
go, you can be a nurse practitioner who injects Botox. And I'm, totally a fan of that. In Tennessee, you need someone to overview your license, right? You need a medical provider over that. So every state is different, but a lot of them are focused around advanced practice. But what Kentucky did was they looked at everyone that is in nursing. And I think that's so, hats off to them. I graduated from Western Kentucky.
Did you
I
really?
sure did. I'm a Hilltopper. That's where I got my BSN. I did, yeah. And so I had a chance to speak to the Kentucky Association of Nursing Students and to the Kentucky Nurses Association in February before they passed it, and then in April after they passed it. And hats off to them. But this is how we create that change, right? We have to ride a fine line as nurses of advocating for our patients and their safety while also advocating for us and our own safety. Exactly. We have to be able to practice safely in order to keep our patients safe. So everything is about keeping everything safe. It all comes back to that.
It's like on an airplane. They say, put your mask on before you put your child's mask on. If you can't breathe, you can't keep somebody else breathing.
That's exactly right.
And so they're both key organizations, and I'm so thankful to be part of them. But also defining these terms is important for us if we're going to be advocating for change, to know who are the players, right? And maybe not what team am I on, but what team am I on? Does my state have an organization I should be a part of that would help me amplify my efforts, or that I can amplify their efforts, right?
Yes.
One thing I'm trying to do is a lot of these initiatives that have been started, I want to amplify that with social media, especially with our younger nurse populations who may not be opening the emails on the email list.
Listen, this is a conversation that I had with the Tennessee Nurses Association shortly after I was convicted and sentenced. I had conversations with them because I really wanted to get something on the books in Tennessee similar to what Kentucky passed. It was an uphill battle. It's never going to happen in Tennessee. I don't say never. Knock on wood. It may happen.
Say never, so that the universe can prove you wrong.
Yes.
Right?
I could do that.
Reverse psychology. Does that work on the universe?
I said I never wanted to be a nurse when I was little, so it works. And then the universe was like, oh, you didn't want that? Wow. Cool. But I lost my train of thought. Where are we going? So I was talking with anyone who would listen: the Hospital Association, the Nurses Association, pharmacists, respiratory therapists, emergency, like anyone who would listen. I'm like, how do we get this going? This benefits everyone. And so then I was talking to one of the individuals at the TNA, and I said, I have thoughts about this. We need to get this out here, and so he asked, who would you be collaborating with? And so I mentioned Erica. Yes. And, his remark was, she's not the biggest fan. And I said, I'll tell you what, she is. She's as transparent as she can be. And more importantly, she's meeting the nurses where they are.
Well, 100%.
She's meeting the nurses where they are. If you, as an organization who is advocating for and representing nurses, are not meeting the nurse workforce where they are, then you're not doing a very good job of advocating for your workforce. You don't know what their complaints are. You don't know what their problems are. You're not
with them.
Correct. And we are dealing with a workforce that is about 3 years old.
Literally.
They're 3 years old, right? They're on social media. That's what they're doing. We get our information.
Not saying that they're childlike, but there's been such a high turnover rate that the senior nurses on a lot of units and in leadership, like charge nurses, they graduated a few years ago because the older nurses, the experienced nurses have left.
Yeah.
That's what.
And this is a statistical fact. So Rebecca Love talks about this as well. The average experience.
Everyone talks about
2.5 years.
Yeah.
2.5 years in a hospital. And we should all be a little bit worried about that.
Right. So in order
to
get that in place, you need to know what are the problems that these nurses are experiencing, and how do we confront that? How do we advocate so that our entire healthcare system can have a safe practice? You have to be able to meet those people where they are.
Yeah.
Tech.
I was about to say we are here.
Tech, right? Like
some of it is tech, but we do have to make sure that it's
LinkedIn,
safe.
It's Instagram. That's where the majority of those people are.
Yeah.
And if the nurses associations are really only focusing on advanced practice and things like that, then we're missing a piece of that. If they're not getting out there on social media and getting in front of and interacting with the largest portion of your workforce, then we're missing a key component.
Hold on, I'm going to blow you guys' mind. So,
bring it.
Do you know some of these nurses association do not allow LPNs?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Kentucky does.
Texas just did too, so I'm proud to say.
Welcome, Texas. You're welcome to catch up with Kentucky.
I love it.
We're known for our advancements.
Kentucky is on the
Do you know
map.
how many states do? When did you guys do that?
It was last year or 2023.
Yeah.
And still the only. Oh, you mean for LPN?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking about House Bill 155. I'm not sure.
Okay,
I
just
think
curious.
it was recent. Though.
Yeah, so ours was recent. I
LPNs.
didn't know that initially. I do feel like that's not very fair.
I'm just going to go ahead and give a shout out right now to Delano Manson. She is our nurse and executive director for the Kentucky Nurses Association. That's a big part due to her leadership. And so, shout out Delanor.
Shout out Delanor.
Okay, we're going to do a shout out to Serena Bumpkus as well, because she was
In
in Texas.
Texas.
She's the CEO for the Texas Nurses Association. So between her and the president, Amy McCarthy, I do believe that they are the ones. And Laura, if I'm missing someone, so sorry, so sorry.
Feel free to
But-
comment.
Yes.
Help me out.
Yeah. So
don't
yes,
wanna leave
mad
anyone
respect,
out.
mad respect.
Yeah.
And my biggest thing was that if you can't, so the Nurses Association, some of their complaints are they don't have enough money.
True.
Well, if you're excluding a whole population of what we're
Right.
calling nurses that sit for a license, that's not a financially good business decision either.
No, I
So
don't
why
think
not
they're
bring it on
meant to
board?
be. Yeah, I don't think they're meant to be intentionally excluded.
Where does
Yeah.
that come from? Do you know? I don't understand it. And I know we got off on a tangent. I'm so
Yeah,
sorry. about
I
that.
don't think I want to
Okay, yep,
go down
yep,
that
yep.
road. I can't comment on.
No, I can't. I have no
But
idea. They're
I'm
licensed
really
practical
glad
nurses. They're nurses. and
we're
we
bringing in
cannot.
all the stakeholders to the
Right.
table for the conversation.
That's exactly what we have to all show up. If we can all get together and show up, that's how we get the ball rolling.
I think there's a song for that.
Is there a song for that?
The more we get together, the
Oh,
happier we'll be. When your friends are my friends.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry, I'm in Tennessee. I'm feeling at home now. Well, I think this has been an incredible episode, and I could talk to you guys all day. So we'll just continue this conversation.
Okay.
Definitely follow us all on social media and respond, and you can be part of the conversation. My handles everywhere are at Nurse Rosa Speaks. You're at Advocates #4 nurses. And then do you have
Radonda
a
Vaught.
I will put that in the show notes.
Yeah, and we're going to hit up nurse.org as well because we're here for media.
Yeah, nurse.org is great.
So they're giving us,
giving us this opportunity.
shout out for them.
Yes. Shout out to
So
nurse.org.
thank you because
Yeah.
we're trying to highlight everything that all the nurses are doing. So
Yeah.
Yes. Thank
I'm
you
so glad
much.
that you were able to come here.
Me too.
Again, as a nurse, contributing, putting this information out there, right? Because this is great. This is how we get out to our nurses and bring us all to the table. And this is so exciting.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
share our message with people who, we might not have a chance to see and have a long conversation with here at Vive.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, but we'll be like, oh, I want to hear what they had to say on their Live at Vive podcast. Right?
Yeah.
So subscribe wherever you are listening. If you're watching on YouTube or if you're listening on an audio platform like the Health Podcast Network. And yes, please leave me a comment. Let me know if you learned something here or if there is a $1 billion idea you think I need to talk about. And I will see you in the next episode.